Okay, so let's just unpack this right from the start. I want you to imagine just for a second a world where the gods aren't just metaphors.
Right. They aren't just characters in a dusty old book somewhere.
Exactly. And they definitely aren't just stories you tell your kids to get them to behave before bedtime. Imagine a world where they are tangible, terrifying, literal geological forces of nature.
Like walking natural disasters, basically.
Yes, exactly. Because 500 years ago, these entities didn't just have a minor family squabble, they went to war. And the collateral damage wasn't just a burnt field or ruined castle, it was the total annihilation of an entire country. Wiped off the map, just
Um,
completely gone.
It really sets the stakes immediately, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We aren't talking about abstract spirituality or distant deities sitting on clouds playing harps here.
No, not at all.
We are talking about divine entities with the power to erase geography. It's less like a Sunday school lesson and more like living next door to a dormant volcano that actively hates you.
That is a terrifying image, but it's painfully accurate. And that is exactly where we are starting our deep dive today. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are unpacking a really high-stakes nautical fantasy world. For those taking notes, the book name is The Isles of the Gods by Amie Kaufman. We want to make sure the audio overview output really catches that because it's a phenomenal source text.
It is such a rich text to dig into. Because on the surface, I mean, if you just glance at the cover or read the blurb, it looks like a standard high seas adventure.
Right, you think ship sailors, maybe some storms and romance.
Exactly. But underneath all that, it's actually a complex theological thriller. It deals heavily with the actual physical mechanics of faith, the brutal cost of sacrifice, and what happens when the divine intersects with cold, hard politics.
And we have a ton to get through today. We've gone through all the source material, the novel, the maps, the character journals. We've scrutinized all of it. Our mission today is to truly understand how this specific world works.
Because the mechanics are fascinating.
They really are.
Mhm.
We need to unpack this intricate magic system where you essentially have to bribe spirits to get anything done. We need to look at the political Cold War that drives these characters. And we definitely need to talk about this group of unlikely allies who are just trying to stop a second war of the gods.
And central to that entire mission is analyzing the tension between two concepts the text introduces very early on, glitter and grit.
Yes, glitter and grit. It's such a perfect framing.
It really is. It represents the nobility versus the sailors, the rigid formal magic versus the messy reality of the world. It's a theme that runs through literally every chapter, and honestly, it's the lens through which the whole story really makes sense.
So let's not waste any time. Let's sail right into the history. Because to understand why everyone in the present day is so terrified, you have to understand what went down 501 years ago.
It's the shadow hanging over everything they do.
It is. It's the collective trauma of the world. So let's talk about the Pantheon.
Right. The backstory here is the engine of the entire plot. The source material describes a pantheon of gods, starting with the Mother. She is the creator figure, and she's generally seen as neutral. She's the board on which the game is played, if you will.
The ultimate neutral ground.
Exactly. And then she has 7 children.
A big, messy, incredibly powerful family. And we all know how well those get along at Thanksgiving, let alone with cosmic, world-ending power involved.
Oh, yeah. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And like any big family, there are intense rivalries. For our purposes today, you really just need to know 3 of them.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, you have Burka, who is known as the warrior or the sentinel. Then you have Mycene, the god of risk. Think of him as the ultimate gambler,
The guy who always doubles down.
always. And finally, you have Valus, the youngest, who is the god of merriment.
And 5 centuries ago, these gods were highly active. They were walking around interacting with the world. And Mycene, being the god of risk, decided to take a massive gamble.
He did. He wanted more territory. His people, the Milesians, were hungry for land, so Mycenaean's armies attacked the lands of his siblings.
And this wasn't just human warfare with swords and shields, right?
Not at all. The text describes it so vividly. It talks about armadas being sent skipping across the sea like stones. We're talking about magical firestorms that shouldn't exist naturally. The whole event became known as the Cataclysm.
But the turning point, the thing that really traumatized the collective consciousness of this entire world, was what happened to Valus.
Yes, Valus's land was called Volstane. It was the land of the god of merriment. So you can imagine it was all parties, joy, celebration, arts.
Probably a really great place to live before the war.
The best. But the clash between Mycene and Berica, because Berica stepped in to defend her younger brother that clash, was so violently destructive that Vostane was entirely destroyed.
And when we say destroyed, for everyone listening, we don't mean it was conquered and occupied. We mean it became a place called the Barren Reaches.
Correct. It was effectively glassed. And the source text mentions a specific detail that is just haunting. It says Valus screamed as his people died.
Wow.
Yeah, he lost all his worshippers in an instant. And because gods in this world draw their power from faith, from the sheer number of worshippers, Valus was essentially broken by that loss. He withered away.
That establishes the mechanics of divinity right there, doesn't it? Faith isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart. It's a literal, tangible fuel source.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If the tank goes empty, the god stops running.
And that event terrified Berica. She realized that this war would just end everything if it continued, so she did something desperate. She turned to a human for help.
King Anselm of Alinor.
Yes, the legend of King Anselm. He's the direct ancestor of one of our main characters, Prince Leander.
He is. And the legend says that the stop Messian Berica needed more strength than she possessed on her own. She needed an overwhelming act of sacrifice. So King Anselm offered his own life.
He didn't just pray harder. He didn't just hive more gold. He literally died for it.
He sacrificed himself completely. And that massive injection of sacrifice energy strengthened Berica just enough that she was able to bind Messian in an eternal sleep.
And that's when she became the Sentinel.
Right. She promised to watch over her sleeping brother forever to ensure he never wakes up to threaten the world again.
But there is a little bit of ambiguity in the historical record about Anselm, right? It's not totally a closed case.
There is, and this is honestly where the lore gets really chewy and interesting. The texts talk about these beings called messengers.
Right, from the age of messenger.
Exactly. These were beings who were neither fully human nor fully God. They were humans imbued with intense divine power. The question historians in this world ask, and it's a question the characters themselves ask, is did Anselm just die?
Or did he become something else?
Right, did he become a messenger? Did he transcend his humanity in that moment of sacrifice?
Hold that thought, because that question is going to become the massive pivot point for the entire ending of the story.
Oh, absolutely. We will definitely come back to that.
So that is the history. Now let's fast forward 500 years to the present day. You have two main superpowers left on the board. Alinor and Malaysia.
And they are polar opposites of each other. It's a classic Cold War setup, but obviously with a heavy fantasy twist.
Let's start with Alinor. This is the land of glitter.
Alinor is all about tradition. It's ruled by a queen. It's a picturesque land of rolling green hills, beautiful grand architecture and magic. Crucially, it's a land where the magic is still tied to the gods.
But the text notes something super interesting about them. Faith is actually waning in Alinor.
Yeah, the characters mention that people still go to temple, but it's more of a social club now, a mere formality.
Like a place to see and be seen.
Exactly. They aren't trembling in fear of the divine anymore. They see literal miracles like flowers blooming in the snow in the temple gardens, but they just take them for granted.
It's like how we treat Wi-Fi today. It's magic, but we just expect it to work and get annoyed if it doesn't.
That's a great comparison. They become totally complacent. They believe the war is ancient history, just a myth. They don't feel the imminent danger. They think the bill was paid 500 years ago, and they can just enjoy the subscription now.
Meanwhile, across the sea, you have Malaysia.
The city of invention.
These guys represent the grit, or at least the industrial griminess of the world.
They are the modernists, for sure.
Yeah.
Their land is incredibly rocky and inhospitable, which is exactly why they wanted Alinor's fertile land in the first place 500 years ago.
Right.
But because they couldn't farm well, they had to invent to survive.
Yeah.
So they have steamers, automobiles, electricity, neon lights.
It feels very late 19th century industrial revolution, very steampunk adjacent in a way.
It really does. But they are considered godless by the Alinorians because their patron god Messian is asleep.
But here's the incredibly dangerous part. They aren't truly godless. There is a fanatic sect operating there called the Green Sisters.
This is where the real thriller aspect of the plot kicks in. The Green Sisters are essentially nuns, or perhaps more accurately, a dangerous cult dedicated entirely to Messian.
And they have a working theory on how to wake him up, don't they?
They do, and this theory is the primary engine of the whole plot. The theory is based directly on that fuel source we mentioned earlier, faith and sacrifice.
The magical economy.
Right. If Messian is asleep, he can't actively receive a sacrifice easily. But if enough people pray, if that faith metric just goes up high enough, he might get strong enough to shatter Berica's bonds.
So the Green Sisters are basically trying to prayer bomb the god of risk into waking up.
That's exactly it. And if he wakes up, The war just starts all over again. And remember what we said about the last war? It wiped an entire country off the map.
Which perfectly brings us to our cast of characters. We really need to talk about the people who are stuck in the middle of this divine standoff. Let's start with Selly.
Selly is fantastic. She is our main lens into the grit of this world. She is what they call a salt blood.
For our listeners who haven't read the glossary in the book, let's clarify that term. What exactly makes someone a salt blood?
It's a cultural term in this specific world. It essentially means she was born on a ship and raised on a ship. The sea is her true home.
She actively hates the land, right?
She hates the city. She hates the land. She hates the politics. She is immensely practical, tough, and just an incredibly skilled sailor. She couldn't care less about court intrigue. She only cares about the tide and the wind.
But she has a secret, or rather, she has this massive source of internal shame.
She does. She has magician's marks.
What are those exactly?
There are these visible green veins or tattoos on her arms that indicate she has the innate potential to wield magic. In this society, having those marks should make her elite. It should mean she gets a cushy life living in a palace or a grand temple.
But the magic doesn't work for her, does it?
No, it doesn't. Usually if you have the marks, you learn to command the spirits. But whenever Selly tries, the spirits just flat out ignore her.
That's gotta be so frustrating.
It breaks her confidence. She feels like a complete failure as a magician, even though she is a brilliant sailor. She carries this heavy chip on her shoulder that she's somehow broken. She thinks she's a defective part in the grand machine of the world.
Then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, we have the glitter. Prince Leander of Alinor.
He is the ultimate foil to Selly in every single way. He's handsome, charming, and seemingly incredibly shallow.
The classic Playboy prince.
Exactly. He's always in the gossip papers, always at a fancy party. He seems like the classic spoiled royal who has literally never worked a hard day in his entire life.
But that is entirely a mask.
It is a meticulously crafted mask. Leander is actually on a deeply secret, deeply dangerous mission. Remember the ritual King Anselm did 500 years ago?
The ultimate sacrifice.
Right. Well, every 25 years, a royal descendant from his line must physically sail to the Forbidden Isles of the Gods to make a blood sacrifice.
Basically to top up the batteries on Barika.
That's a funny way to put it, but yes, essentially. They have to offer royal blood to renew Barika's strength, so she has the power to keep Machen asleep. Leander is the one chosen for this generation's sacrifice. But there's a huge problem. He's running late.
Typical royal right, always keeping people waiting.
Well, to be fair to him, there were major complications. Assassination attempts, complex political maneuvering, trying to keep him away from the docks. But yes, the end result is that he is dangerously late.
And there are consequences to that.
Massive consequences. Because he is late, the divine bonds are actively weakening. The storms out at sea are getting noticeably worse. The whole world is just starting to fray at the edges.
We also have a character named Keegan who joins them.
Yes, a scholar.
Yeah.
He is very much an outsider, very bookish and academic. He is literally bringing books to a knife fight.
I love characters like that.
They are great. But his role is so crucial because he actually understands the deep history. He has painstakingly read the private journals of Leander's ancestors. He provides the vital context that the other two constantly miss. He's the guy who actually bothered to read the instruction manual for saving the world.
And finally, we have to talk about the bad guys, the antagonists driving the immediate threat. We have Laskia.
Laskia is utterly terrifying because she is a true believer in the absolute worst way possible. She's a high-ranking, fanatical member of the Green Sisters.
She's the one trying to wake up the gambler god.
Yes. She genuinely believes that if she successfully starts the war, she will be richly rewarded when Machen rises to power. She essentially acts as a religious terrorist. She is out there sinking civilian ships just to try and stop Leander from making his sacrifice.
And she has a henchman named Jude who is a bit more complicated.
Jude is a really fascinating, complex villain. He is an exiled noble from Alinor. He is working for Laskia, but you really get the sense early on that he is conflicted about it.
He's not totally sold on the mass murder aspect.
Right. He is seeing the sheer brutality of Laskia's methods. I mean, she ruthlessly sinks Leander's entire progress fleet just to try and kill him, and Jude is starting to seriously question if this level of horrific destruction is really worth the ultimate goal. He acts as the conscience in a room full of bad guys.
So just to summarize the setup here, Leander desperately needs to get to the Isles to perform this blood ritual. Laskia is violently hunting him down to stop it. And Selly and Keegan just get completely swept up in the chaos.
That is the board we are playing on. Now we really need to look at the specific mechanics of the game, the magic system itself. because this is quite distinct from a lot of other fantasy out there.
I always love a well-thought-out magic system.
Yeah.
How exactly does it work in this world? You mentioned it a bit earlier. You have to basically bribe the spirits.
Yes, it is strictly transactional. That is the key word you have to remember. Transactional. The world is absolutely full of spirits. Elemental spirits of the air, the water, the fire, the earth. They are everywhere all the time, but they do absolutely nothing for free.
So if you want something, you have to pay up.
Exactly. If you want the wind to miraculously fill your sails when there is no breeze or a fire to light in a damp cave, you have to offer a physical sacrifice.
It's an economy, a literal spirit economy.
It is exactly that. Alinor's magicians, the highly trained ones, use these special temple-blessed candles. The spirits apparently love the scent of them, and they consume the candle as payment for their services. It is a highly stable currency. It's like carrying accepted cash.
But Leander, when he's on the run for his life, he doesn't have a neat little stash of holy candles in his pocket.
Right, he lost all his luggage when his fleet was sunk. He has to completely improvise.
So what does he use?
He uses crumbs of toast, he uses coins. The spirits seem to value things that humans place value on. And here's where it gets incredibly dangerous for him. When he completely runs out of physical items to barter with, he has to sacrifice himself.
Wait, he pays with his own vitality.
He does. The spirits actively take his energy, his literal life force. It drains him physically. The book describes him getting exhausted, pale, shaky.
That's intense.
It shows that magic in this world has a very literal, very physical cost. It is not just waving a wooden wand and saying some words. It is actively giving away a piece of your own life to make something happen. It is essentially like drawing your own blood to pay for a taxi ride.
Now let's contrast that brutal transaction with Selly. You mentioned before that the spirits usually just ignore her completely, but there is a massive breakthrough moment for her on the boat, right? The little Isabetta.
Yes. This is a truly pivotal scene for her character arc. Selly is absolutely desperate. They are out on the water. They are being actively chased by murderers. She desperately needs the water spirits to help them navigate a really treacherous current so they don't crash.
And she doesn't have candles either.
No. But instead of trying to command them arrogantly like a trained magician would or trying to bribe them with a gold coin, she does something entirely different. She opens herself up to them.
She tells them she loves the sea.
She doesn't just tell them, she shows them her profound love for the ocean. She shows them that she is intrinsically of the sea. She embraces the fact that she is a salt blood.
And how do they react to that?
The spirits respond overwhelmingly. They don't just obey a command, they actively swarm her. They play with her hair. They eagerly and willingly guide the boat through the danger.
So while Leander's magic is a strict transaction, like I give you a coin, you give me a wind, Selly's magic is actually a relationship.
Precisely. It is the perfect illustration of the difference between glitter and grit. Glitter is the formal, ritualistic transaction. Grit is the raw, emotional, messy connection to the world.
It's a beautiful way to frame it.
Selly has a bond with the natural world that the elite trained magicians simply don't understand. It heavily suggests that the official temple-sanctioned way of doing magic might actually be wrong, or at the very least deeply incomplete. The spirits don't really want cold coins. They crave genuine connection.
Okay, so now our trio, Selly, Leander, and Keegan, are stranded on this tiny stolen boat, the little Isabetta. They are desperately trying to navigate without proper charts, trying to find these mythic forbidden islands before Laskia catches them.
And the dynamic between them on this tiny cramped boat is just pure friction.
I can imagine.
Selly looks at Leander and just thinks he is a useless fop who is absolutely going to get them all killed. She sees his fancy ruined clothes and his polite manners and just thinks he's dead weight.
And Leander.
Leander is trying so hard to maintain his charming, unflappable facade. But deep down, he is secretly terrified that he is going to fail his ancestors and let the world burn.
And Keegan is just caught in the middle.
Keegan is basically just trying not to throw up over the side of the boat while reading a dusty journal.
But that journal is actually super important. It's not just him catching up on light reading to pass the time.
No, it is the critical key to the whole mystery of their mission. It is a highly guarded family journal passed down directly through Leander's royal line. Keegan, in his frantic reading, finds some entries from Leander's own father.
And what do they say?
His father wrote extensively about a recurring dream he had. He dreamed of visiting not just Baraka's Isle, where the sacrifice usually happens, but the Isle of the Mother.
The big boss. The creator herself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, this is supposed to be completely forbidden territory, or at least completely unknown and uncharted territory. No one goes there.
Yeah.
But finding this entry plants a seed in their desperate minds that there is actually more to the Isles than just the sentinel goddess.
It implies there is a higher authority than the squabbling children gods.
Right. It's a massive theological clue hidden in plain sight.
So against all incredible odds, they actually managed to navigate the open ocean and find the Isles. And we really need to describe this place for you listening because the visual imagery Kaufman uses is just stunning.
It's breathtaking. It's essentially a massive ring of islands, all connected by a jagged submerged reef, which they call the Mother's Crown.
And the water inside that ring is totally different, right?
Completely different. Inside the protective ring, the water is perfectly unnaturally flat. They call it the still waters. It's eerie and beautiful at the same time. It feels almost like walking into a massive cathedral made entirely of nature. It's completely silent and totally cut off from the violent crashing waves of the rest of the ocean.
So they head to the Isle of Burica first, because this is the established mission. Go to the specific temple, cut the hand, drip the royal blood, save the world from total destruction.
It'd be simple.
Should be. But when they finally exhaust themselves, climbing all the way up through the dense jungle to reach the temple, they find absolute disaster.
The temple is desecrated.
It is completely smashed to pieces. The sacred altar is broken cleanly in half. The giant statue of the goddess Burica is destroyed and in ruins.
Lusky got there first.
Or at the very least, her agents did. And this is a catastrophic failure for our heroes, because the ritual relies entirely on that specific altar acting as a conduit.
Think of it like a dedicated phone line to the goddess.
That's exactly what it is. And with the altar broken, the line is dead. The physical infrastructure of faith has been demolished. Leander literally cannot make the magical connection required to transfer his strength to her.
But he still tries, though, doesn't he? He doesn't just give up immediately. He tries, out of sheer panic and desperation. The text describes him cutting his own hand and offering the blood onto the broken stones anyway, just hoping it works.
Does it do anything?
No.
No.
He says he just feels a massive empty chasm between him and the goddess. He realizes in that agonizing moment that he is too late. The mission has completely failed. The singular purpose he was born and raised to do, he can't execute it.
And this is where the profound despair really sets in for the group. They are stuck on a deserted island. The heavily armed bad guys are actively closing in on their position. And the one magical thing they came to do is physically impossible.
But, and this is why you always bring the nerd on the quest, this is where the scholar proves his immense worth. Keegan remembers that specific journal entry he read on the boat.
The entry about the Temple of the Mother.
Right. He posits a wildly dangerous theological loophole. His theory is that all the children gods, Burica Mishina, all of them are technically always present at their mother's table.
Like a tense family dinner. You might fight and scream in your own bedrooms, but when you're at mom's house, everyone has to be present and behave.
That's a perfect analogy. So Keegan suggests that if they absolutely cannot reach Burica at her own personal temple, maybe they can reach her through the Temple of the Mother.
It's a total Hail Mary pass.
It is the most desperate gamble imaginable, but it's literally all they have left.
So the race is officially on. They have to physically cross the dangerous submerged reef to get to the massive central island, the Isle of the Mother. And now Laskia Jude and this terrifying giant magician henchman they brought have completely caught up to them.
They're literally chasing them up the side of the mountain.
The tension in these chapters is just incredible. It's a grueling physical race up a cliff face, but it's also a race against the metaphysical clock of the world.
Exactly, because if Laskia manages to kill Leander before he reaches that central altar, Mishin wakes up and the world ends.
So they finally reach the Temple of the Mother, and it's not a built structure like Burica's. It's a massive natural cavern, entirely open to the sea. It feels incredibly ancient, primal.
And Laskia is right there waiting for them. She manages to corner them right at the edge.
Now we reach the absolute climax of the story, and this is where the core themes of sacrifice and magic really violently collide. Selly is panicking, and she tells Leander to just quickly flick some blood at the altar and be done with it.
She's thinking entirely practically. She's applying her grit mindset. Just get the transaction done, pay the toll however you can, and let's get out of here alive.
But Leander, in this terrifying moment, realizes something incredibly profound.
He realizes that a simple transaction isn't going to be nearly enough for the mother.
Right.
This isn't just a small, localized wind spirit wanting a crumb of burnt toast. This is a primordial creator deity. Leander realizes that to reach the goddess in this incredibly primal place, He needs to offer total, complete surrender.
The text specifically says the altar demands something far greater than just a few drops of blood.
This directly parallels the legend of King Anselm from 500 years ago. Anselm didn't just pay a minor tax to the gods he gave his entire life. Leander suddenly understands that the only possible way to win this game is to willingly lose everything.
So Laskia lunges at him with her weapon, and Leander does the unthinkable. He doesn't fire off.
No, he doesn't block or parry. He actively grabs her, and he uses her momentum to throw himself toward the altar with her.
Wait, he takes them both completely over the edge.
Right into the sacred altar space. It is absolute chaos. Laskia falls hard, presumably to her death, or at least severe crippling injury, and Leander slams violently into the altar. It's a moment of absolute brutal sacrifice.
And then the divine intervention actually happens. A massive glowing figure appears in the cavern.
It's Barika, the sentinel herself. She manifests to accept the ultimate sacrifice. She reaches out and physically touches Leander.
But the reality is Leander is dying from the impact. His body is broken. And this is where Selly steps up and makes her definitive move.
This is honestly my absolute favorite part of the book's entire analysis of how magic works. Selly point-blank refuses to accept the transaction.
She refuses to let him die.
She refuses to let Leander go. She physically grabs onto him while he is glowing with divine energy.
And the magic just violently surges.
The overwhelming power of the goddess is flowing directly into Leander. But instead of just dissipating and taking his life, it flows through him and into Selly. She acts as a grounded anchor, a human conduit for divine energy.
And what does she offer to the spirits to make this happen? Because she doesn't have a coin. She doesn't have a blessed candle.
She offers her own heart, her raw human desire. The text explicitly says she thinks I need him.
Wow.
It is a raw, completely selfish but incredibly beautiful human desire. She literally anchors his fading soul to the physical world with the sheer force of her love and need for him.
And amazingly, it works.
It absolutely works. The ancient temple accepts this bizarre dual sacrifice. Barika's power is fully restored and strengthened, the divine chains are renewed, and Macian stays asleep.
The world is saved. But, and there's always a but in these stories, there is a heavy cost.
There is always a cost when dealing with gods. Leander physically survives the ordeal, but he is fundamentally changed by it.
The physical description of him in the immediate aftermath is really haunting. His eyes completely change color to a glowing emerald green.
And his senses are completely overwhelmed. He becomes hypersensitive to everything around him. The normal daylight hurts him physically. Normal sounds are agonizing. He seems strangely detached from his own humanity.
And Keegan, the scholar, he has a working theory about what just happened to him.
Of course he does. Keegan suggests that Leander has essentially become a messenger, just like his ancestor King Anselm.
So the myth was true.
It seems so. Keegan speculates that Anselm didn't actually just die on that altar 500 years ago, but was fundamentally transformed into a divine, immortal soldier. And now Leander has undergone that exact same horrific transformation.
He is no longer fully human. He is permanently touched by the divine.
And we as the audience see immediate, terrifying proof of this. Because the cavern is collapsing and they have to escape. And Leander stands up and leads them out onto the water.
I want to clarify that. He doesn't lead them into the water to swim. He leads them on the water.
Yes, he physically walks on the surface of the still waters. It is extremely heavy messianic imagery. He calmly leads Selly and Keegan to the safety of their boat by simply walking across the surface of the ocean.
And Jude, the conflicted henchman who is left behind, he actually watches this entire miracle happen.
Jude is left stranded on the island with the broken, bleeding body of Laskia, and he looks out and clearly sees the glowing green in Leander's eyes. And you can tell in that moment Jude realizes the entire game has completely changed.
They didn't just hit the snooze button on the war.
No, they haven't just delayed the inevitable war, they've inadvertently introduced a massive new piece to the chessboard. A living, breathing messenger.
And what about Selly? How does her arc wrap up in this aftermath?
Selly finally and fully accepts her unique brand of magic. She realizes once and for all that she isn't a failed or broken temple magician. She is something entirely new and possibly much more powerful.
Because she's tied to the environment.
Yes, she is intimately connected to the sea and the raw, untamed forces of the world in a way the pampered temple magicians could never be. She accepts that she is different and that her difference is her greatest strength.
So as we start to pull all these threads together, let's really deeply unpack the core themes here. Because we started this whole conversation with this defining idea of glitter and grit.
And the climax of the story perfectly proves that neither side can truly survive entirely alone.
Right.
Leander, representing the glitter, desperately needed Selly. He absolutely needed her gritty practicality or navigational skills to even get to the island, and ultimately, he needed her raw emotional anchor to physically survive the lethal divine encounter.
And on the flip side, Selly needed Leander just as much.
She did. She needed his deep, intrinsic connection to the divine, his inherited knowledge of the ancient ritual, to actually save the world she loves sailing on. It's a perfect synthesis of the two ideals. You simply cannot just have high-minded, out-of-touch tradition, and you cannot just have raw, cynical practicality. You absolutely need both working in tandem to stop a literal god.
And then there is the very prominent theme of faith versus proof.
This is such a crucial takeaway from the text. The modern industrialized world, Malaysia, wanted to actively force the gods' hands. They used calculated prayer bombing and sheer numbers to try and mechanize faith like a steam engine.
Treat it like an input-output machine.
Exactly. But the actual solution to the crisis required the exact opposite approach. It required a blind, terrifying leap of faith.
Real faith.
It required a sacrifice that made absolutely zero logical or mathematical sense, throwing yourself off a cliff or stubbornly refusing to let go of a dying boy when common sense says to run.
It's the profound difference between treating magic as a predictable science and treating magic as an unpredictable miracle.
That is beautifully put. That is exactly what the author is driving at.
But we have to address the massive elephant in the room before we finish. The cliffhanger. Because Kaufman does not give us a neat and tidy bow at the end of this book.
Far from it. The immediate apocalyptic threat is temporarily stopped. Yes, Machen is still asleep in his magical prison. But those fanatic Green Sisters are still out there, heavily armed and highly motivated. And more importantly, they know definitively now that the gods are active and can be interacted with.
And then there is Leander.
Leander is the ultimate wild card now. If he is truly a messenger, what does that actually mean for the geopolitical landscape? Is he a weapon of mass destruction for Alinor? Is he even still Leander deep down, or is he just a vessel for Barika's will?
And what about Jude? He's witnessed a literal, undeniable miracle. Does seeing a man walk on water radicalize him further into religious extremism? Or does it finally redeem him and pull him away from Luskia's violent cult?
That is the million-dollar question for the sequel. The board is completely reset, but the pieces are far more dangerous now.
So what does this all practically mean for us, the readers? Why should you, listening to this deep dive, care about fictional emerald eyes and sleeping gods?
I think it really deeply resonates because it constantly asks us what we are genuinely willing to sacrifice for the things we claim to believe in.
That's a hard question.
It is. In a modern world that often feels incredibly transactional. I do this specific task, so I get this specific reward. This story powerfully suggests that the most impactful, powerful things we will ever do are the things we do purely out of love or duty without any guarantee of a reward at all.
That is a remarkably powerful takeaway from a fantasy novel.
And it also serves as a stark reminder that history isn't just a list of dead things that happened in the past. It is a living, breathing thing that we constantly live alongside. Leander was quite literally living out his ancient ancestors' unresolved story. We are all, in a way, living in the turbulent wake of the past.
Before we officially wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. If Leander is indeed now a divine messenger, and the ancient gods are clearly stirring from their slumber, what exactly happens when a literal god of risk finally wakes up to find out his sister has been keeping him prisoner in the dark for 500 years?
That is a genuinely terrifying thought to leave on. And honestly, more importantly, if the mythical age of messengers is truly returning to this world, does that inherently mean the age of humans is coming to a violent end? Are regular people just destined to be collateral pawns on the divine chessboard all over again?
Something to seriously mull over on your commute. If you want to know more about the incredibly specific and fascinating interactions with the elemental spirits, or if you just want to read all of Keegan's wonderfully nerdy journal entries about the deep history of the bibliothèque, you absolutely have to pick up the book for yourself.
It is completely worth the read for the intricate world building alone, I promise you.
Keep your candles lit and your eyes firmly on the horizon. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.